Okay, so this is day 8 in our Unit 3, Topic 1, Trig Unit in Pre-Calculus. We're going to talk about the circular functions and identifying the 6 trig ratios. But first is the warm-up on page 30. So we're going to pause the video here and give you about 6 or 7 minutes to try these problems. So for me to answer them, I like to draw my special triangles and my quadrantal angles. So I'll do that down here at the bottom. So we have our 30, 60, 90 triangle, or pi over 6, pi over 3, with the side lengths of 1, 2, root 3. And then our 45, 45, 90 triangle. And then our quadrantals, so over 1, up 0. 0, 1, and 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. All students take calculus. And that should be everything I need. Okay, so tangent of 5 pi over 4. So I'm going to ignore the 5 for a minute and say pi over 4 is down here. Oh, here we go. So So tangent is opposite over adjacent, 1 over 1. That's 1. But then 5/4 is a little more than 4/4, which is 1 pi. So that puts us in the third quadrant. So that is a final answer of +1 because tangent is positive in the third quadrant. Now 17 over 6 is way more than 2 because 12 over 6 is 2. But let's ignore the 17 and figure out sine of pi over 6. So here's my pi over 6. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. But then I need to know what quadrant 17 pi over 6 is in. So I'm going to subtract 2 pi. So 17 minus 12 is 5 pi over 6. So this is the same thing as sine of 5 pi over 6. 5, 6 is a little less than 1 because 6 over 6 is 1 pi. So that's up here in the second quadrant. So sine stays positive because sine is positive in the second quadrant. Cosine of 5 pi over 3. So I'm going to ignore the 5 and do cosine of pi over 3. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Now 5 over 3 is a little less than 2 because 2 is 6 over 3. So that puts me in the fourth quadrant, a little less than 2 pi. Cosine is positive in this quadrant, so +1/2. Now we've got 5 pi over 2, and over 2 is a quadrantal angle. So first off, this is more than 1. So I'm going to do 5 pi, 1 rotation, minus 2 pi. So that is pi over 2. So this question is the same thing as sine of pi over 2. Sine is the y coordinate, so at pi over 2, this is a value of 1. Tangent is, well, here's pi, so tangent is y over x. So this is 0 over -1, which is 0. And cotangent, so tangent is y over x. Cotangent is x over y. Over here at 2 pi, so that's 1 divided by 0. But we can't divide by 0, so this is undefined. Okay, so on page 31, here's our new types of problems for today. These 6 trig functions are what we've defined before. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, or if you're on a coordinate plane, x, y, and r, so sine, and here's theta. Sine is y over r, which is opposite over hypotenuse. For all of these, cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so it's r over y. So for numbers 1 and 2 and 3, we're going to draw a picture. It's easiest if we sketch what it's telling us. So we have a point on the terminal side of an angle that has the coordinates 4, 3. So over 4, up 3. We want to find the 6 trig functions from this picture. Well, we need the hypotenuse. So we're going to use Pythagorean Theorem. 4 squared plus 3 squared equals the radius squared. So 16 plus 9 is 25. The square root of 25 is 5. And one of the most used right triangles is a 3, 4, 5. So if you don't want to have to calculate it every time, you can remember that Pythagorean triple. And now we need all 6 functions. So we got sine of theta, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. And I like to line them up where the reciprocals are across from each other this way. They're all going to be fractions. So here we go. Sine is 3 over 5. Cosine is 4 over 5. Tangent is 3 over 4. So now these answers are the reciprocals of my original answers. And we are done problem 1. For number 2, find the exact value where theta is at negative 4, 3. So that's to the left 4 and up 3. So again, if we do Pythagorean theorem to find r, 3 squared plus negative 4 squared is still 9 plus 16, because negative 4 times negative 4 is positive. That's 25. So 5 is r. Set up my 6 ratios. They're all going to be fractions. So sine, well here's theta, is 3 over 5. Cosine now is negative 4 over 5. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So you could write 3 over negative 4, but that looks really funny. We don't like a negative in the denominator, so I put it in the numerator or in the very front of your fraction line. So now for the reciprocals, I'm going to keep the negative in the numerator so that it looks nice. So if you think about our memory device of all students take calculus, notice in this quadrant, sine is positive. So sine and cosecant were both positive fractions. But all the others were negative in this second quadrant. Negative, 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 negative. So that fits with what we did with the unit circle and before that first quiz, as far as what ratios are negative and positive in which quadrant. All right, lastly for number 3, P is that point. So we go over and up. So negative 1/2 root 3 over 2. And it says it's the unit circle, so I know the radius is 1. If you want, you can calculate that. We would go negative 1/2 squared plus root 3 over 2 squared equals r squared. That's 1/4 plus 3/4, because you would square numerator and denominator. Well, that's 4/4, and anything divided by itself is 1. So that's how we get the radius is 1. All right, our 6 functions. Oh, I took up a lot of space here. Sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, cotangent. Okay, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse. You should not write the fraction divided by 1. That's too much. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. But now tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that's going to take a little bit more work. So when we have a fraction divided by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this tangent is negative root 3. So now for the reciprocals, we get 2 over root 3, negative 2 over 1, and negative 1 over root 3. Okay. So your homework today is going to be 32 and 33. So I'll do one of these problems with you, and then you are responsible for the rest, and you'll have the rest of the class to work on them. So we're gonna draw this point and then fill in all of our ratios. So I recommend making a little sketch. So over 1, up 5. Well, now we need the radius. So -1 squared plus 5 squared is r squared. 25 plus 1 is the square root of 26. So for this picture, sine is 5 divided by root 26. Cosine is -1 over root 26. Tangent is 5 over -1. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. And cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. For all these answers, it's okay to leave a square root in your denominator. You don't have to simplify them. Okay, so your homework, finish page 32 and 33. All the answers are in Drive so that you can check yourself.